Shark attacks are rare but gripping reminders of the ocean's raw power and mystery. As apex predators, sharks dominate our imaginations, blending fear and fascination. Each encounter reveals strength and unpredictability, emphasizing the importance of respecting these magnificent creatures and their habitats. Understanding shark behavior and the delicate balance of marine ecosystems can reduce conflict and foster coexistence, transforming fear into awe. Here are 6 unforgettable stories. It was 1982 in Sydney, Australia's Bondi Beach. Ocean lovers have always admired Bondi Beach, which was frequently praised as one of Australia's most iconic surfing locations. Surfers, swimmers, and tourists found refuge at this beach, only a short drive from Sydney's busy city center. Its turquoise waters, soft golden sands, and consistent waves made it a global hotspot for surfing competitions, drawing thousands of spectators year after year. Nevertheless, problems had been simmering beneath this picturesque coastline for several months. Recent undersea construction projects near the harbor have disturbed the ocean ecosystem's natural rhythms. A massive dredging operation intended to widen the nearby shipping lanes displaced thousands of marine animals. Bull sharks, already known to regularly visit Australia's warm coastal waters, had become particularly hostile due to disturbances to their hunting grounds. The annual Bondi Pro Surf Classic, a prominent competition that drew world-class surfers, was scheduled on that date. On this hot January afternoon, the beach was crowded with onlookers, media representatives, and the competitors' families during the summer. There was a sense of excitement as 6 of the best surfers got ready for their heat. The waves were perfect, and the sky was clear. One of them was Milo the Wave Rider Kavanaugh, a seasoned professional and a local legend. His family had been watching him surf these waves for many years, and they would never stop applauding him from the shore. Next to him was Jareth Jinx McAllister, a young talent from New Zealand known for taking chances on the riskiest waves. The other 4 surfers, Finlay O'Malley, Troy Beckett, Eamon Stokes, and Ollie Vandervoort, had their fans baselining the beach and were well-known athletes in their own right. The surfers paddled into the open water as the heat built, competing for the best spot to catch the next big wave. The waves were enormous, and the ocean was churning, making for an exciting competition. But far more horrifying was happening beneath the surface. Bull sharks had been drawn near the coast, but the surfers were unaware of this. The increased water activity had agitated them, and the dredging had removed their food sources. These were no ordinary sharks. Bull sharks are some of the ocean's most ferocious and erratic creatures. They pose a particular risk to swimmers and surfers because they are known to enter shallow waters. Unnoticed by the competitors or the lifeguards positioned on the beach, a shadow materialized beneath the surface as the surfers rode the waves. The initial indication of difficulties occurred when Finlay O'Malley vanished under the water while paddling out following a wave. The eerie quiet of the ocean engulfing him was all that was audible. There was no splash or scream. Initially, the onlookers assumed it was a regular occurrence. Perhaps he had fallen or chosen to dive beneath a wave. Finlay's family, standing near the edge of the shoreline, called out his name, their voices tinged with confusion and worry. The other surfers had not noticed anything strange because they were still preoccupied with the competition. The real horror didn't surface until Milo Kavanaugh, riding a massive wave, felt something brush against his leg. Looking down, he saw the recognizable outline of a bull shark, its black, sinister shape slicing through the water like a knife. Panic overtook his senses, and he quickly gave up on his board and began swimming wildly toward the shore. But it was too late. With terrifying accuracy, the shark struck, submerging him in a powerful wave of water and blood. By now, the beachgoers sensed that something was wrong. The lifeguards blew their whistles urgently, signaling the surfers to return to shore. However, the mayhem was far from over. Recognizing Milos's attack, Jareth McAllister turned to alert the others while paddling nearby. An additional shark suddenly lunged at him from below, its strong jaws snaking down on his leg before he could respond. As he was pulled into the depths, he let out a scream that set the beach on edge. When Troy Beckett noticed blood in the water, he knew instantly what was happening because he had been riding a wave further out. He attempted to paddle back to the coast, but the sharks persisted. He was yanked off his board by one of them so forcefully that his shoulder dislocated. Despite his desperate attempts to break free, the shark held onto him as he flailed in the water. After making a full circle to strike, Troy vanished under the surface in seconds. The two surfers, Eamon Stokes and Ollie Vandervoort, were still standing in a complete panic. The sharks were too swift for them to keep up with as they frantically paddled toward the coast while screaming at each other. The youngest person in the group, Eamon, was hit from behind by a shark, which sank its teeth into his back before he could even react. While his surfboard spun erratically in the waves, his body erupted. The last surfer left Ollie was getting close to the coast when a shark snagged his leg and dragged him into the water from behind. Despite his best efforts to kick and fight, the shark was too strong. Finally, in a desperate attempt to protect himself, Ollie reached for his board, but the shark's jaws did not let up. The people on the beach stared in horror as the water surrounding him turned red. Though it was now too late, the lifeguards launched rescue boats. The 6 surfers were gone, and the ocean was in a feeding frenzy. The sharks retreated to the deep waters as the families of the victims who had been watching in disbelief were now screaming in anguish, the realization of the tragedy sinking in. Except for the sound of waves crashing against the coast and the distant cry of sirens, the once bustling beach was silent. Bondi Beach residents were left in disarray in the following days. Debates concerning marine conservation and human meddling with the ocean's ecosystems dominated the headlines, and the media dubbed it the Bondi Bloodbath. According to investigations, the construction activities close to the harbor had upset the local shark population, causing them to move closer to the coast in search of food. Some cited the absence of appropriate safety protocols for such a prominent surfing competition, while environmentalists claimed that human encroachment on natural habitats was directly responsible for the tragedy. The victims' families, including the parents of Finlay O'Malley, the fiancé of Jareth McAllister Milo Kavanaugh's, wife and 2 kids, and the relatives of the other surfers, were left to deal with their loss. In the following months, they created the Ocean Guardians Advocacy Group. This non-profit group advocates for stronger rules governing underwater construction projects and increases public awareness of the risks of upsetting marine ecosystems. The survivors of this tragedy, despite the loss of their loved ones, rose to become ardent supporters of the ocean, determined to keep a similar tragedy from ever occurring. No more Bondi Pro Surf Classics were ever held. The sea, formerly a sight of wonder and excitement, has come to represent nature's untamed, unforgiving force. And even as the waves kept crashing onto Bondi Beach, everyone who had been present that fateful day would never forget the 6 surfers who were eaten alive in front of their families. A remote surf break called Pauwalu Point waited for daybreak 2002 deep on Maui's north shore. This hidden gem was a local surfer's dream come true, surrounded by lush greenery and volcanic rock. For ages, people aware of the location's existence were drawn to it because of its immaculate waters and flawless waves. According to Pauwalu Point's history, the ancient Hawaiian fishermen respected the sea for its power and abundance. Local surfers prepared to take on the morning waves as the first light peeked over the horizon. One of them was pro surfer Keone Maho, who strongly bonded with the sea. He had 3 friends by his side: the fearless Leilani Punahele, the hilarious Makayo Lono, and the unrivaled agility of Nalani Kahele on the board. The sky was painted in shades of pink and orange, and the waves gently lapped, making the morning appear ideal. The surfers paddled out, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline. But a strange assembly was taking place below the surface. The sudden abundance of baitfish, probably caused by overfishing and shifting ocean temperatures, had attracted a sizable school of hammerhead sharks to the area. All the surfers initially saw moving beneath them were shadows. An uneasiness crept into Keone's ever-observant mind. Shark sightings in these waters were not unusual, but the sheer quantity was unnerving. The silhouettes of hammerhead sharks circling below were visible in the clearer water as the sun rose higher. Normally inquisitive and non-aggressive, the sharks didn't seem the same this morning. Their movements were agitated, which was a stark contrast to their usual behavior. The mood changed abruptly from calm to tense. One shark brushed past Leilani's board with unusual force. causing her quick instincts to alert her to the danger. The group started to feel panicked. Makayo joked about becoming breakfast to lighten the mood, but his laughter was forced. Nalani was looking for a way out when she noticed a small fishing boat nearby. Hope waved for assistance, her eyes flickering. The seasoned Kai Maleko led the fishermen who saw the disturbance. They maneuvered their boat closer as soon as they realized how serious the situation was. Kai had been in these waters for decades and knew enough about shark behavior to understand this wasn't typical. Keone's board gave way abruptly as the sharks started to close in. A shark lunged in its strong jaws, closing on prey frighteningly. Adrenaline flooded Keone as he battled to keep his balance and ward off the predator. The other surfers came together, their fear evident but eclipsed by their determination to live. Makayo and Nalani paddled wildly in the boat's direction while Leilani used her board to create space. Armed with whatever gear and oars they could find, the fishermen made noise and splashed to scare away the sharks. The struggle between nature and humanity unfolded beneath the rising sun. Keone, injured but determined, managed to climb onto the boat with help from Kai. With their hearts racing, the others trailed behind the fishermen, who kept thwarting the sharks. After boarding, the group paused to regain their breath. Keone had made it alive as the sharks relented back to the deep. The fishermen easily administered first aid to the wounds Keone had. Although the immediate threat had subsided, the encounter had an impact. Keone's wounds served as a clear reminder of the horror of the morning, even though they were not life-threatening. A probe got underway in the days that followed. Attracted by the shark's peculiar behavior, marine biologists investigated the area. They deduced that the shark's hostile behavior resulted from overfishing and temperature changes in the water, which had upset the shark's regular prey cycles. The events at Pawalu Point triggered conversations concerning the precarious balance between human activity and preserving marine ecosystems. Regaining their respect for the ocean and its creatures, the surfers returned to the waves despite being shaken. The experience made Keone, Leilani, Makayo, and Nalani closer than before. They shared their experience to increase awareness and became advocates for sustainable fishing methods. Though its power and mystery were better understood, Pawalu Point remained a popular surf spot. The surfers were aware that they were only guests in the shark's domain, and that the dance between predator and prey would always keep them in their place of humility. In the following years, locals would learn the legend of the Dawn Hammerhead raid as a tale of bravery, survival, and the constant call of the sea. In 2012, the sun was high above the Florida Keys, illuminating the turquoise waters with a golden tinge. The Langston family, Father Cyrus Langston, Mother Mariah Langston, and their two kids, 10-year-old Kaya and 15-year-old Ezra, had planned a day of surfing around the beaches of Isla Mirada, a small island in the Upper Keys. Isla Mirada has long been a favorite vacation spot for both locals and visitors. It is well known for its clear waters and colorful coral reefs. However, the delicate balance of nature had begun to shift in recent years, and the Langstons were unaware of the growing number of predators lurking beneath the waves. The Keys have always been home to various shark species, but the blacktip population has surged recently. Marine biologists say the amount of prey available has decreased, especially for smaller fish overfished or chased away by warming waters. Because of this, the swift and agile blacktip sharks have become more aggressive in their search for food, coming closer to the coast and mistaking anything that moves for food. The Langston family was about to enter this new, perilous reality on that fateful day, unintentionally. They arrived at the beach just after noon with surfboards strapped to the roof of their aging van. A light wind rustled the palm trees and the sky was clear, with only a few stray clouds drifting in from the horizon. It looked like a calm day for surfing, with waves rolling in. The family set up their towels and umbrellas before Cyrus, a former lifeguard, felt comfortable in the water. As usual, Kaya was the most enthusiastic member of the group and was the first to paddle out. Her petite frame vanished into the distance as she chased the ideal wave. Ezra trailed closely behind, trying to outdo his younger sister due to his competitive teenage nature. Mariah and Cyrus remained closer to the coast, content to observe their kids from afar. Cyrus, although protective, had faith in his family's skills. But Mariah was watchful and constantly kept a close eye on them. She did not see any cause for concern as they had surfed these waters numerous times previously. However, that day a difference went deeper than the surface. The splashing and moving of fish and the surfers themselves had attracted a group of blacktip sharks about 6 in number. Attracted by the vibrations of the board slicing through the water, the sharks, which ranged in length from 4 to 6 feet, circled slowly. The Langston's shadows on their boards looked like the fish they had been hunting for years. The family laughed and yelled in the distance as they rode the waves, blissfully unaware. Kaya realized something wasn't right when a sudden bump against her board startled her as she paddled back out after catching a wave. She first saw a dark, sleek shape slicing through the water directly beneath her. At first, she thought it was the current or a piece of driftwood. Seeing the dorsal fin's menacing presence made her heart skip a beat. Her tiny hands gripped the edges of her surfboard, and she froze, not knowing what to do. Fear tightened in Ezra's stomach as he saw the fin from a few yards away. Everything appeared to slow down at that precise moment. He had heard tales of shark attacks in these waters, but they had always been far-fetched accounts of other people's experiences. He felt a wave of panic now that he was facing reality. The surrounding water burst into movement before either of them could respond. Perhaps thinking Kaya was thrashing a wounded fish with her paddle arms, one of the sharks sprang at her board, its razor-sharp teeth brushing the edge. As the shark circled back for another pass, Kaya screamed and instinctively pulled her legs onto the board, trembling all over her body. Pumped full of adrenaline, Ezra paddled toward his sister and called out to their parents, but the wind and waves muffled his voice. Though they were still unaware of the danger, Cyrus and Mariah could see the commotion from where they were standing. Cyrus did not realize how serious things were until he noticed the dorsal fins poking through the water. Without thinking, he picked up his board and dove into the waves with Mariah behind him. The sharks had picked up their aggression by the time Cyrus arrived. Ezra fell into the water after one knocked on his board, causing him to lose his balance. He felt the shark's razor-sharp skin brush against his leg before he swiftly scrambled back on. The shark had gotten incredibly close. In an attempt to save Kaya, Cyrus arrived before her and pulled her onto his board. While fear took hold of her heart, Mariah yelled at Ezra to keep her composed. The sharks persisted because they could sense their prey was still in reach. Cyrus and Kaya were thrown into the water when a particularly large blacktip charged at his board. There was a brief moment of pandemonium as surfboard sharks and flailing limbs moved violently in the churning water. First to surface, terrified and with wide eyes, Kaya gasped for air. Cyrus took her by the shoulders and held her over the water, using all his strength to kick toward the shore. With his mother only a few feet away, Ezra paddled ferociously, his eyes fixed on the dorsal fins that appeared to be closing in from all sides. As Mariah arrived at his location, a shark suddenly lunged toward Ezra, its jaws snapping shut just inches from his leg. She gave Ezra one last shove, and they paddled as quickly as they could toward the safety of the shallow. The sharks started to retreat as they approached the coast, and the water became shallower. Due to their preference for deeper waters, blacktip sharks became disinterested as the Langston family approached the shore. The family was so shaken and tired from the ordeal that their legs gave out as they staggered onto the sand. With Cyrus holding Kaya tightly and his heart still pounding, Mariah fell to her knees and drew Ezra into her arms. Following the ordeal, the Langstons sat in stunned silence as the shock of what had happened began to set in. They were only spared by their lightning reflexes and unwavering will to live after having been on the verge of death. After being a place of happiness and leisure, the beach suddenly seemed like a battleground full of reminders of how fleeting life can be. In the days that followed, the small town of Isla Mirada saw a rapid spread of news of attacks. Blacktip sharks were becoming more common in the area, so experts were called to assess the situation and issue warnings. The experience profoundly impacted the Langstons. Although they had always respected the ocean, they knew its potential for danger and unpredictability. Even though they would eventually make their way back to the water, they would never forget that day because it was a constant reminder of the precarious balance between humans and the natural world, and the strength of family ties in the face of unfathomable danger. In 2009, The region around the small surf town of Eland's Bay on South Africa's west coast was renowned for its strong waves and untamed beauty. This section of the coast has long attracted thrill-seekers from all over the world. It is steeped in local surfing legend. Over the years, the waters had also gained a reputation for something more ominous, an increasing number of shark sightings, particularly the elusive and dangerous tiger shark. Nestled between the roaring Atlantic and the jagged cliffs was the small town. Before turning into a center for surfers, it was a fishing village. Few people in the area dared to go into the water at night despite their respect for the beauty and danger of the ocean. Darker, colder, and less predictable at night, the sea was a completely different animal. A nighttime surfing expedition, however, was too alluring for a group of 4 surfers to turn down. Group leader Kairos McTavish was an accomplished surfer in his mid-30s, who loved to push the boundaries. There were rumors of bioluminescent plankton that, in the right circumstances, could light up the waves. And this night with no moon in the sky seemed ideal for an adventure along these lines. Beside him were his 2 friends, Dace Venter and Juno Eckhart, who were experienced surfers, and his younger brother, Oren McTavish. The group believed they were well prepared. They affixed glow sticks and headlamps to their wetsuits for better visibility in the pitch-black waters. The waves beneath them shimmered with an eerie glow as they paddled out into the dark sea, the bioluminescence illuminating every wave, crash, and ripple. It seemed unearthly, even surreal. They were the only ones on the water that night, and part of the excitement came from being alone. A big tiger shark had been lurking in the nearby waters, but the surfers were unaware of it. Attracted by the glistening plankton and the peculiar movements overhead, the predator had been hiding in the lower depths, behaving with the stealth and accuracy of a top hunter. Because of their propensity for opportunistic feeding, tiger sharks posed a particular threat at night, when their ambush tactics worked best. The dark ocean echoed with the laughter and joyful whoops of surfers catching wave after wave. The danger had been creeping closer with each set of waves, but they were unaware of it. When Dace felt something brush against his leg while paddling back out after riding a wave, that was the first indication that something was wrong. Gazing into the dark depths, he halted while treading water and shone his headlamp. There was nothing he saw. He dismissed it, figuring it was driftwood or seaweed, and continued. The tiger shark, though, was getting closer. The sudden flailing in the water happened very quickly. Something strong knocked Juno off her board, and she had been farther out than the others. She let out a muffled shout. For a few terrifying seconds, she vanished beneath the waves. Her leg was bleeding, and her board was gone when she surfaced, struggling to breathe. When the others heard her screams, they frantically paddled their boards in her direction. Kairos was the first to approach, taking her by the arm and quickly pulling her onto his board. An uneven cut on her calf was gushing blood. The water around them was glowing strangely pale due to the glow sticks on their wetsuits. And that's when they noticed it. The distinct outline of a tiger shark circling below the surface. Panic ensued. A few meters distant, Oren yelled at the others to head straight for the shore. Paddling back as quickly as they could was their only chance. The shark still needed to be finished. With enough force to throw Dace off balance, it lunged again towards his board's underside. With his heart thumping fiercely in his chest, he hurried to get back on. The others were advised to remain near Kairos, struggling to hold on to his board. In an attempt to dissuade the predator, they gathered tightly together. Nevertheless, the shark persisted in its streamlined form, slicing through the water incredibly. It made a second pass but broke the surface with its dorsal fin this time. The group paddled together for an eternity, their arms burning from the effort. The coastline seemed unfathomably far away, barely discernible in the distance. Even though she was in agony and losing blood, Juno tightly gripped Kairos's board as he pushed forward with all of his might. They were about to believe the shark would attack again when it abruptly turned and vanished into the darkness. They couldn't tell if it was no longer interested or had become sidetracked by something else. Nevertheless, they didn't pause to inquire. They paddled until their board struck the shallow sandbar, at which point they stumbled, trembling and exhausted, onto the beach. After returning to shore safely, they immediately made a help call. After being brought to a local hospital, Juno had her wound sutured. The local authorities investigated the attack, but tiger sharks had long been known to pose a threat, particularly in the waters near the Western Cape. The event did little more than fuel the continuing discussion about the necessity of tighter safety regulations and nighttime water activities. Kairos, Orondace, and Juneau were all deeply affected by the experience. Even though they had barely avoided danger, the thrill of night surfing had become less exciting. Even though they had survived, the ocean had reminded them that it was its own master, and that no amount of planning could completely ensure safety in its depths. Following the attack, scientists kept tracking the movements of tiger sharks along the coast, and local surf schools banned night surfing entirely. To the McTavish brothers and their friends, the water would always be a place of quiet respect and caution. For others, it remained a place of beauty and adventure. In 2011, there was a lot of excitement in Half Moon Bay, a small coastal town in Northern California. Annual surfing competitions were held at Mavericks, a famous surf spot located approximately 2 miles offshore each winter. The competition attracted competitors from all over the world, all keen to ride the enormous erratic waves that crashed over the shallow reef beneath the chilly Pacific Ocean. With tourism and fishing as its main industries, the town has a long history with the sea. However, no one could have anticipated the chaos unfolding that year. A day when the ocean's predators would turn the competition from thrilling to terrifying. The weather was ideal for the event. The waves were enormous, the wind was constant, and the skies were clear. Competitors vying for the coveted Mavericks title had assembled in their dozens, from seasoned pros to up-and-coming amateurs. Among them were well-known individuals like Tessa Cromwell, an emerging talent from Oregon, and Nico Valerius, an Australian surfer with international renown. Local surfers competing for the top spot included Mavericks veteran Jonah Reef Sullivan. Spectators lined the cliffs, watching from a safe distance as the surfers took on the massive swells. It was a smooth start to the competition. Paddling into the deep water, the surfers sliced through the icy surf with their boards. The competitors danced with the waves during the first few heats without major incidents or tumbles. The atmosphere was electric, and each time a surfer made it back to shore on one of the enormous waves, the crowd let out a roar of cheers. However, strange things started to happen as the third heat got underway. Sleek and dark shapes moved beneath the surface, but at first no one noticed. Many species of marine life, such as dolphins, seals, and occasionally sharks, have been reported to reside in the waters off the coast of Northern California. On that particular day, though, no one had ever seen the sharks this close to the beach. The first indication of trouble was when Rajiv Masood, an amateur surfer, abruptly abandoned a wave in the middle of the ride. It appeared to be a typical fall from the cliffs, but Rajiv emerged screaming and flailing wildly. He had been knocked off his board by something powerful, something fast. Unaware of what was happening, the event presenters hurriedly requested a rescue, and the safety jet skis raced to get him out of the water. Rajiv's leg was bleeding from a deep bite mark when he was pulled onto the jet ski. Numerous mako sharks renowned for their extraordinary speed and agility had started to circle the area. Those surfers still in the water began to panic. A startling shove against Nico Valerius's board startled him as he prepared for his next wave. He looked over his shoulder and saw the distinct outline of a mako shark diving beneath him, its pointed, sharp nose slicing through the water like a torpedo. With fear on his face, he paddled fearlessly toward the safety of the jet skis. The competition was halted immediately, but not everyone made it to safety on time. As Tessa Cromwell waited for her turn, she was suddenly encircled by 2 or more sharks. One of the sharks lunged at her despite her best efforts to stay calm as she paddled frantically toward the shore. It struck her board with such force that it broke in two, sending her plummeting into the water. Before the emergency team could save her, she was bitten on the arm and had to be rescued quickly. They drove back to the beach, leaving a trail of blood in their wake. The scene descended into chaos over the next few minutes. Some surfers were still waiting for waves in the lineup, oblivious to the presence of sharks. Even though the rescue crew was working non-stop to get everyone back to shore, sharks appeared everywhere. Jonah Sullivan had been surfing Mavericks for years and had never seen anything similar. Knowing that a single mistake could endanger his life, he carefully navigated his board while scanning the water. The water appeared alive with movement as he observed the dorsal fins breaking the surface. Surfers were nothing more than prey in the path of the sharks' sleek bodies as they slid through the surf. The event organizers promptly evacuated the water upon recognizing the seriousness of the threat. When the onlookers saw the bloodied surfers being brought ashore, they quickly realized what was going on after being startled by the sudden stop. Word quickly spread that the sharks had arrived, and chaos broke out on the beach. While helicopters hovered overhead scouting the waters for more sharks, paramedics attended to the wounded. Dr. Lyle Everett and other local marine biologists were perplexed by the mako shark's unexpected appearance so close to shore. Sharks were common in the area but rarely threatened surfers, especially in the winter when the water was colder. After years of studying the marine life in the area, Dr. Everett surmised that the unusually large schools of baitfish may have drawn in the sharks. The frenzy of the competition, with its splashing and movement, likely triggered the sharks' hunting instincts. The incident prompted an immediate investigation. The Coast Wildlife and Fish Department and local oceanic researchers began studying the area to understand what caused the sharks to behave aggressively. Theories ranged from shifting ocean currents and water temperatures to overfishing, disrupting the sharks' natural feeding patterns. But one thing was clear: the waters off Mavericks were no longer as predictable as they once seemed. In the weeks following the attack, the surfers who had survived the ordeal reflected on their experiences. Her arm healing from the bite, Tessa Cromwell vowed to return to Mavericks, though with a new respect for the dangers lurking beneath the waves. Jonah Sullivan, who had narrowly escaped without injury, advocated for increased safety measures at surf competitions, including better monitoring of shark activity. The Mavericks competition would go down in history not for the waves, but for the sharks that came from the depths and turned a day of sport into a fight for survival. The event highlighted the delicate balance between humans and nature, and the need for a deeper understanding of the ocean's mysteries. For those who had been there, it was a day they would never forget, where the line between predator and prey had been blurred, and the ocean had shown its teeth. The choppy waters surrounding New Zealand's North Island had a special appeal in the late summer of 2013. Experienced surfers knew that the undiscovered surf spots were rewarding and challenging, especially those close to the remote coasts of the far north district. These waters offered something different from the crowded beaches of Mount Maunganui or Raglan, a pristine, unspoiled surfing experience amidst towering waves and strong winds. The ocean in this area has been experiencing minor changes, though many people were unaware of or disregarded this. Warmer subtropical waters had been mixed with colder southern ocean currents, upsetting the delicate balance of marine life. A sequence of incidents that left an indelible mark on sea researchers and surfers occurred in these isolated waters, particularly in Spirits Bay. Some old hands among the surfers gathered at Spirits Bay on that fateful day. Kanoa Drayton, a 34-year-old local celebrity whose name reverberated throughout the North Island's coastlines, led the group. Alone with him were Tain Taniwa Raukura, a former lifeguard with unrivaled underwater skills, and Moana Teague, a marine conservationist turned adrenaline addict. The three of them had headed north, searching for a more remote ocean area to escape the crowded areas to the south. Younger Australian surfers Lyle and Kai Sutherland joined them after hearing stories of unexplored waves in Spirits Bay. With the group paddling out into the blue expanse, breaking surf awoke the morning. The waves rose enormously like walls of water and then perfectly formed tubes. Spirits Bay was notorious for its erratic swells, which had brought these surfers to the area. They were dancing on top of the ocean, riding the waves' intense energy, not realizing how dangerous the area beneath the surface might be. They were unaware that a sizable group of dark-colored sharks, some measuring close to 3 meters, had approached the coast. Because of the shifting currents and warming waters, the sharks became more attracted to each other than they normally would have been. Normally, dusky sharks were not known to be hostile toward humans, but instinct and hunger had turned them into more dangerous creatures. It was unexpected for the species to travel this close to the northern beaches of New Zealand, even though marine biologists had recently noticed strange migrations among them. Kanoa initially sensed the unsettling shift in the water. Halfway through the ride, a fin slicing through the surface caught his attention. Its fin was too sharp, too deliberate, and at first he thought it was a dolphin, which is common in these waters. As he paddled back into the lineup, he saw another fin break the surface, then another. There was an issue. The initial assault happened quickly. Moving farther out, Moana felt a sharp, strong, and very definitely alive impact beneath her board. Her board overturned, and she briefly found herself underwater, lost in thought, as the icy water pulled her downward. She was a few meters from her board when she came to the surface, and she could see a dark silhouette of a shark circling below. Kanoa yelled at the others to return to land, but the sharks had already spread out, and it was too late. Tane, who was always a calm presence, led the charge and guided the group toward the safety of the sand. Despite their persistence, the sharks continued to dart between the surfers, their sleek bodies gliding at an alarming speed. The shark's tail pulled Lyle, the younger Australian, off his board. Panic set in as the group desperately paddled their boards, scraping the skin of the predators below. The sharks had moved back, vanishing as fast as they had appeared when they reached shallow water. Out of breath and shaky, the group staggered onto the beach. Moana was slightly injured when grazed by one of the shark's rough patches on her leg, but the damage was not as bad as it could have been. Though they were still alive, the ocean had made them aware of its danger and unpredictability. After word of the attack quickly spread, Dr. Keahi Hiraoka, a specialist in shark migration, led a team of marine biologists from the University of Auckland to Spirits Bay. Even though Dr. Hiraoka had been monitoring dusky shark movements for months, this incident was a concerning development. The sharks were moving around in their territory, probably due to the continuous temperature fluctuations in the ocean. It served as a sobering reminder of how quickly the equilibrium of marine ecosystems can change. Alarmed by the attack, local authorities warned surfers and swimmers to stay out of the water on all of the northern beaches of the North Island. The effort to tag and track the sharks was stepped up, and patrols were established. To avert further encounters, Dr. Hiraoka collaborated closely with Moana Teague and other conservationists to map the sharks' new migratory patterns. In the months following the attack, the surfers who had survived that day started to change. Formerly well known for his audacious water stunts, Kanoa Drayton became an ocean safety advocate, using his platform to spread the word about the perils of underestimating the ocean. Tane gave up competitive surfing to concentrate on lifeguard training and ocean education, while Moana returned to her marine conservation work with a fresh sense of purpose. As this was happening, scientists closely tracked the dusky sharks as they continued their migration. The event at Spirits Bay served as a warning about the precarious equilibrium that exists between land and sea, one that could collapse at any time. The ocean would never be the same for the surfers who had gazed upon the unadulterated force of nature.